Part 3. Instructions. In this part, you will hear 3 talks or lectures. The talks or lectures will not be repeated. There are 5 questions for each talk or lecture. For each question, choose the right answer A, B, C or D. Questions 21 to 25. Listen to a talk on organic dust particles. First you will have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now we're ready to start. Listen and answer questions 21 to 25.
Last time, we learned about acid dust and the effect it may have on weather and climate. But acid dust isn't the only thing that has an impact on cloud formation. There was an article published recently in the British journal Nature about some new research on organic dust particles, such as those produced by burning or agricultural waste. The researchers studied clouds in a part of northern Italy where there are a lot of farms. What they found is that the properties of these particles lead to an increase in the number of cloud droplets in the air. The reason for this has to do with the surface tension of the water. You know what I mean by surface tension, right? Surface tension is why you can drop a leaf or a piece of paper onto the surface of water and it'll float instead of sinking, even though it's denser than water. It's because there's resistance, tension on the surface. Now, droplets of water in clouds have surface tension too. And certain organic particles bring about a decrease in surface tension, which means the droplets will more easily split into smaller droplets, increasing the total number. So what difference does that make? Well, a larger number of droplets in a cloud makes that cloud more reflective of sunlight. The authors of the study say that this process results in about 1% more sunlight being reflected away from Earth. Now this part's a little confusing. We learned last time that acid dust could ultimately have a warming effect on the atmosphere, but the research in Italy suggests that the organic dust particles may have the opposite effect, that by reflecting sunlight, they cause a lowering of temperatures. In fact, the authors say that in some regions, these extra reflective clouds may actually be counteracting the warming effect of greenhouse gases. However, they also say that we don't have enough data yet to talk in terms of the planet as a whole.
Questions 26 to 30. Listen to a talk on alcoholism. First you will have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now we're ready to start. Listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
It's well established that alcoholism tends to run in families. Not only do children of alcoholics have a greater risk of becoming alcoholics themselves and of abusing other drugs, but they also are known to have higher levels of anxiety and depression. On average, children of alcoholics do worse in school than children of non-alcoholics. Now, this is often true whether these families actually live with their alcoholic parent or not. Let's look at 2 different scenarios. First, A child of an alcoholic may be raised by non-alcoholic relatives or adoptive parents. In this case, the child is still at an increased risk because of genetic factors, just like heart disease or other medical conditions. Even if the child never takes a drink, he or she may pass on the genetic predisposition of alcoholism to his or her own children. Children who do live with an alcoholic parent or parents are at the greatest risk because of both genetic and environmental factors. Living with an alcoholic can lead to the development of unhealthy living patterns. These children may not learn how to trust themselves or others, how to handle uncomfortable feelings, or how to form positive relationships with people because of having alcoholic parents as role models. There are an estimated 28.6 million sons and daughters of alcoholics in the U.S., nearly 11 million of them under the age of 18. Of the under 18 group, almost 3 million will develop alcoholism, other drug problems, and/or other serious problems with coping and mental health. About half of all children of alcoholics marry alcoholics and are likely to recreate the same kinds of highly stressful and unhealthy families in which they themselves grew up. It seems that all children who grow up with an alcoholic are affected in some way, but many do find effective ways of dealing with it. You've all heard of AA, or Alcoholics Anonymous. But there's also a similar organization for people who feel that they've been affected by someone else's drinking, the children, parents, other relatives and friends of alcoholics. This organization is called Al-Anon, and it works in a similar way to AA. The meetings are confidential. No last names are required. Its purpose, like that of AA, is to teach members a spiritual approach to their problems and to help each other.
Questions 31 to 35. Listen to a talk on health. First, you will have some time to look at questions 31 to 35. Now we're ready to start. Listen and answer questions 31 to 35.
Men with more than 25% body fat are considered obese, and women with more than 30% body fat are obese. 30% of adults are obese, and so are 16% of adolescents. What does all this mean? Obesity increases your risk of heart attacks, high blood pressure, diabetes, and some forms of cancer. The health problems caused by obesity are expensive too. The estimated annual cost of obesity in the U.S. is about $117 billion. Lack of physical activity and poor eating habits are, of course, the two root causes of this epidemic. Regular exercise reduces your risk for all the diseases I just mentioned, and it need not even be very strenuous exercise. For example, just taking a brisk walk for a half an hour 3 times a week provides significant health benefits for people of all ages. Yet 50% of all American adults don't get enough exercise, and 26% don't get any exercise at all. Women are less active than men, and activity for both sexes decreases with age. As for nutrition, there's also a big gap between what people ought to eat and what Americans actually eat. In the last 30 years, research has shown that calorie consumption has increased for both men and women. Only about 25% of people eat the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and a large majority of them eat far more fat than they should. But enough about what's wrong with us. How do we fix it? Well, let's talk about physical activity first. To be healthy, you need to start a regular exercise program. if you don't have one already. Although any kind of physical movement requires energy, the type of exercise that uses the most energy is aerobic exercise. Walking, swimming, and biking are some popular forms of aerobic exercise. Regular aerobic exercise will improve the ability of your heart, lungs, and blood vessels to use oxygen needed for activity. You'll build a healthier body while getting rid of excess body fat. Most experts recommend you do some form of aerobic exercise at least 3 times a week for a minimum of 20 continuous minutes. Of course, you'll need to make sure that you're eating the right foods in the right amounts to give you the energy for all that activity.
That's the end of part 3.